Happy Friday, Sretan Pet Talk. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5 Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, I answer 5 questions about Croatia that people have sent in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, expatinCroatia.com, email, my consulting sessions, Cam's consulting sessions, and people who write them in the filth on my window, because I don't clean my windows. Sue me. So I am in a top secret bunker. I just arrived a few minutes ago because I'm working on this project for the next 9 days that I'm pretty excited about. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that a bit later. But I'm pretty sure I just woke up the entire village because I had to park really far from where I'm staying. And so I was click-clacking over the cobblestone streets, and I was just like, So I'm cat sitting this for the next 9-10 days, and so my new child is roaming around, and I haven't been here enough time for him to get used to the fact that I'm here now. So I've only been here about 12 minutes. But he may pop into the frame, so just FYI. And when I say pop into the frame, I mean climb on top of this table and try and scratch himself on the phone, which he's already done a few times. So FYI, that is a thing that is probably going to happen. So why am I here? What is the project that I'm working on? So I'm starting a book. I've always wanted to write a book. There are lots of books that I would like to write over the course of my lifetime, and I'm starting on my first one, which is heavily Croatia themed. I'm pretty excited about it. So when my friend said, "Hey Sarah, would you like to come and cat sit for us while we were out of town?" I was like, yeah, I do. Absolutely. And it perfectly aligned with me starting this project. So that's why I'm up here. Before I get into the questions today, which I have 5 really good ones, I know I always say that, but I always mean it. We also have some interesting questions today. And I definitely want to say, certainly tune in next week, because we have some questions that are being researched right now that we haven't talked about before. And I'm really looking forward to answering those questions as well. Daniela, our newest copywriter, is working on those, and I don't know what I would do without her. So glad that she's on the team. She's been helping me with a lot of the research for 5 Question Friday. There's something that I would like to say based on some recent experiences. I'm not going to go too deep into those experiences, but I'm going to say this because I'm talking to myself, but I also want to say it for anybody else out there who, may have dealt with a similar situation, has brought up similar feelings, or maybe you encounter it in the future. But, there are going to be times, people can be good, people can be bad, people can do great things, people can do not nice things. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you inevitably run into some challenges that you wouldn't have if you weren't an entrepreneur, and they can be really tough. And sometimes they can challenge your resolve, challenge you, and make you think like, why did I choose this path for myself? But what I want to say to anyone who gets presented with this challenge where someone's trying to kill your spirit, is don't let them do it. Don't let them do it. Because ultimately, it's all about how we react to situations, and those challenges that we go through ultimately make us stronger, and nobody can do what we can do. No one's going to do something the way that we would do it. And especially if you are thinking about going into entrepreneurship or opening up a business and worried that's going to be hard. Yeah, of course it's going to be hard. But whenever something's hard or challenging, that's how we learn. That's how we evolve. And that's how we get the most satisfaction out of life. So no matter what, when you're presented with those challenges, just move forward. Don't let anybody get the better of you or bring you down. So that is, I'm saying that for my own benefit, as well as anyone else out there who might be in a moment, an especially challenging moment right now. So that's what has kind of been swirling around in my brain for the last couple of weeks. And on the back of that, while it may not be totally clear the reason that I'm about to say this next thing, I think it's important for me to say it because I've never said it out loud before, and I'm going to say it for you right now. I'm going to make a promise to you. And that promise is that we will never ever, 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 ever copy anybody. Ever. If we are inspired by somebody, we will say, hey, we were inspired by this amazing thing that somebody else did. We want to make sure that we give them credit, but we're not going to outwardly copy or plagiarize anybody. Never. And that is a promise I know that we can keep. And I want you to know that. So whenever we put out content, that's because we created it. Period. This whole thing only works because of the trust that we've built up over the last 10 years. That trust we do not take lightly. We've built a reputation based on trust. And how can you believe that we're going to be truthful when we tell you that Moop says this or Hazazo says this if you feel like you can't trust us, you know? So at the end of the day, that's what's really most important to us. And that's why I'm being really firm about this with you right now. So that's it. I know it's a little bit of a heavy of an intro, but I really like to share not just the things about Croatia, but the things about being an entrepreneur in Croatia. And there are times when it can really be hard. It can be taxing. And sometimes those are Croatia related reasons and sometimes they're not. But I hope that's of value. If it's not, you're welcome to tell me, be like, Sarah, we're not interested in this kind of thing. Because ultimately it's about what you're interested in doing. But so far, based on the feedback we got, you guys are interested in hearing about what it takes to run a business here and sometimes those challenges. So I wanted to make sure I said that up front. Now, let's go ahead and dig into this. If this is your first time joining us, this is 5 Question Friday, and I'm going to answer 5 questions about Croatia. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. Okay, let's dig into it. This first question comes from Mark on the 5 Question Friday form. Mark asks, my wife and I are from the UK. My granddad was from Croatia, and this February we are going for the first time to Croatia. So exciting. I have cousins there, some that I have met and some not. We are kindly being picked up at the Zagreb airport by a cousin. My question is, what would be suitable gift for us to take from our country? Or for example, is it customary to take something from your home country? Would I need to take gift for all of the other cousins also? Excellent, excellent question. I'm shocked we have not gotten this question before. So yes, 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 1,000 times yes. Gifts are very customary in Croatia, okay? And at least coming from the States, I feel like there's all this pressure put on gifts, at least from my experience, that it has to be something large or expensive or really personalized. It's not to say that it doesn't need to be personal. There's no, the rules are, here are the rules. It needs to be useful. Croatians love useful. And useful could mean edible or drinkable. You cannot go wrong with something that's edible or drinkable. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be something small. I've gotten so many gifts from Croatians over the last, month and a half because this is a big gift time of year. And, they've all been little small things. Most of the time they were chocolates or cookies or candied lemon rind or lemons, a bottle of wine, those kinds of things. Now, you give gifts at holidays, you give gifts at birthdays, you give gifts when you're invited to someone's home, absolutely. You give a gift if someone has done you a favor. It's not expected, but it is a nice kindness to do that. If you're staying with somebody, if you are go abroad and you're returning home, that's customary. It doesn't mean you have to give gifts for everybody, but for certain people that makes sense. So let's come back to this particular situation. So they have family in Croatia. They're visiting Croatia for the first time. Their cousin's picking them up at the airport and they're going to be visiting other cousins in Croatia. It would be fabulous if they brought some little gifts from the UK. I saw one comment above that Croatians love shortbread. Perfect. Shortbread keeps. That's something that you can easily travel with. So bringing cookies or candy or coffee or chocolate, though, you cannot lose with those things. You cannot lose with those things because those are common things that are given in Croatia. So if Croatians get a chance to taste something from abroad that they don't have ready access to, there's even more excitement to it. So it's not just the ritual of giving the gift and receiving the gift. It's also a bit of an exploration into like a cultural exchange, and it makes it a whole lot more special. So I would not make a big deal about it. He didn't mention how many cousins he has, but I can only imagine how many cousins he has. So even if you just want to do a magnet, just, a little something would be really nice. One thing that I kind of in that going the opposite direction, when I go to the States, one thing that I bring is bay leaves. So they grow wild here. There are bushes everywhere. And in the States, I didn't even know that they were supposed to smell like anything, because we would get these packets of bay leaves that had been dried and they didn't smell like anything at all. And I didn't really know what they were for, even though they were in every single recipe, every savory recipe. And then I got here and I saw them fresh on a bush and smelled them. And I was like, oh my God, this is what they're supposed to smell like. So I would cut off some branches and let them, kind of partially dry in my house. And then I pack them up into different bags. And that's what I would take back to the States to give to friends. And they loved it. They loved it because it was something they didn't have access to. So kind of do a little bit of brainstorming. Gifts really go a long way. They're a gesture of love. So you cannot go wrong there. Even if it's, again, going the other direction. If you're going back home, maybe like just a sachet of lavender. But I'm giving these examples going the opposite direction so you can get a sense of what you can bring to Croatia. We have 2 guides that would be really helpful on this topic. We have one guide on how to give a gift to Croatian, and we go over like 20 different scenarios, I think at least. And then we have another guide on how to be a good guest when you're invited into a Croatian home. So if you would like either of those guides, send us a DM and Cam will send those over to you. Okay. Next, this comes from Grace here on Instagram. We are moving to Croatia from the US in June. My husband is a Croatian citizen, and I'll be teaching flute lessons online. Super cool. Do I pay taxes in... come on. All right. Do I pay taxes in Croatia as well as the US? Possibly. So why do I say possibly? Because there are so many variables when it comes to paying taxes, no matter what country you're in. I can't say definitively yes or no. But there are a few things I can tell you to kind of help you figure it out. All right. So first, I want to make sure that I'm super abundantly clear. The United States does not have a double taxation treaty in place with Croatia. Does not have one. There is one that's been drafted. It has been signed by both countries, but it has not been ratified by the United States. And anyone who is an American or remotely reads the news can probably see that the U.S. has their hands full right now. So this is not a priority. It could be years before that double taxation treaty is signed. And even then, it is not a totalization treaty. It is only focused on business. So if you're an entrepreneur in Croatia or the US, then it's favorable for you. But it doesn't really help the individual very much, at least not in its current form. So that does not exist. Also, Australia does not have a double taxation treaty in place either. That's important to know. So what does that mean? Well, even if your country has a double taxation treaty in place, it doesn't mean you pay taxes in one place or the other just across the board. Every double taxation treaty is different. They have different terms for different kinds of income, okay? So it's important that you know, if you're living in Croatia, does your country have a double taxation treaty in place? And what is contained in that double taxation treaty? Those are 2 important things for you to understand. It is not worth the tax evasion. Don't do that. Now, let's move on to the second part of this. Who is obligated to pay tax in Croatia? If you are living in Croatia for more than 183 days, you are considered a tax resident under Croatian law. Now, if you have a digital nomad permit, you have an exemption on your working income, but nobody else has an exemption, okay? So that's important to know. Now, If you are a tax resident and you are obligated to pay tax, you have to become a taxpayer. Oh, here he comes. This is G. Hi, G. I'm not doing anything. I'm just here for you. I have nothing else going on in the world. It is all about you. Yeah. You're a real fluffy cat. All right, they can't even see me at all, dude. We're gonna have to do something here. All right. Okay, apparently now it's petting time, so I'm gonna have to try and do double duty here and be one-handed. Okay, now, there's also this bit about, really? Okay, you're sticking your butt in the camera, dude. This is gonna be real interesting. All right, I'm gonna move this over here, surrounded by plants, and hopefully that will help. All right, so it's also about making the income legal. So if you have a, in this case, she's working online. If you are working online in the US, you can do that without having a business. You can just be a 1099 contractor. You don't have to register a business or anything. You can just do it against your social security number, okay? But Croatia doesn't function like that. You have to have some kind of registration. Now, if you're working for freelancing for a Croatian company, it's something different. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of that because that is a whole other thing. And if you want to know about what it's like to freelance in Croatia for a Croatian company, submit a question to 5 Question Friday and I'll be happy to go on that tangent. But this is if you have a foreign income, okay? You have to have some kind of registered entity here, like an obert or a DOO or a JDOO, where you can receive that income and then be charged tax on that income. But you also have to pay pension and health care. Now, an obert would most likely be the right solution, but the other consideration is that technically on an obert, you're not supposed to have one client. My experience has been that the government is not as hardcore about this if you are working online for doing business outside of Croatia, but if you're doing business inside of Croatia, they definitely enforce that. They had a big enforcement a couple of years on that. So for this, oh, come on. Oh, this is my most challenging one yet. This is really testing me, isn't it? Okay. All right. So let me summarize in case the cat was distracting, which it is. We're going to keep bouncing around till we make this work. To find out if you owe tax in Croatia or really, all right, I'm going to start walking around. I think that's what we're going to have to do. I think I'm just going to have to be on the move for this one. That's okay. Are you going to walk with me? Great. So it's important that you understand what your tax liability is. It all depends on the type of income you have. It depends on the source of the income, the country, whether there's a treaty or not. In this case, for this particular situation, for Grace, she will need to open up some kind of entity here in Croatia so that she can funnel that income into that business. The only exception to that rule would be if you have like a passive income, like you have rents or investments or capital gains or something as non-working income, then you wouldn't have to open up an entity here in Croatia. But if you're on Croatian soil doing work, then you need to have some kind of entity here to funnel in that income, and then you pay taxes and pension and health care on that income. Okay, I hope that all made sense. It was a little bit difficult for me to keep mental track with the little guy over here. So if you have any follow-up questions, please drop them in the comments. Okay, I think I've got a little bit of reprieve now. So let's go on to our third question. Oh, by the way, we have all the guides on all the businesses and all the taxes. So if you would like anything more specific on that topic, send us a DM and Cam will shoot you over whatever it is that you need. Okay. Next, this comes from Daryl. I have a feeling this is Cam Croat, who's one of our frequent flyers. I didn't see his handle when he submitted it, but I presume that it's our Daryl out there. I've been waiting to answer this question. Okay. Can you opt out of the mandatory HRT TV charge? Bravo! Hey! I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so let me explain what this means. Now, HRT is the public television and radio channel. It's state-owned. Now, whenever you own a property, HRT wants to charge you for access to their public radio and television. Now, this is a bit of an issue in Croatia because they can't force you to pay. They can try, but they can't really force you to do it. The goal is you try to avoid it. If you can avoid it, then you can avoid it forever. But if they get you, it's really hard to get out of it after that. Then you just have to pay in perpetuity. So they want to count your number of receivers, is how they call them. They consider a receiver to be a TV. There's a hairball happening right now. Isn't that nice? Can you hear that? They consider a receiver to be a TV, a laptop, a radio. I've even seen a car radio get charged. Now, what they do is they send an inspector to your address. And if you answer the door, they've got you. There's no getting out of it. So don't answer the door. I got out of this for a while because at my last apartment, they came and I managed to play the I'm a dumb foreigner card and I don't own this apartment. And so they called the owner and I thought it had all been worked out. I don't know. But then I moved into my apartment and always the rule of thumb when you go to answer the door, you really always need to look through the keyhole because you never know it's going to be HRT or someone else asking for money. And I was distracted one day. One of my colleagues was at the house. And I went and I looked through the peephole, and right as I started to open the door, I was like, I bet you this is HRT. And my brain did not work fast enough to stop me from opening that door. And I opened the door. I opened the door, and then they got me. And you do not have to let them in the house. I hope that's clear. You do not have to let them in the house. But they got me, and now I have to pay €10.67, I think, every single month until the end of time. Now, what Daryl said, he's like, I have a TV subscription, presumably like a streaming service, so why do I have to pay for this? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're watching HRT or not. They still want to charge you for it. It's the public television service. So no, you cannot get out of it. Now, I want to tell you exactly what you have to do if you want to get out of it, okay? So if you want to cancel, you have to fill out a specific form saying that you do not own a receiver. So you can't lie and say that you don't have a receiver. You shouldn't lie. Never advise anyone lying to the government. So you're going to submit this by mail or email, and then they have to follow up to make sure that what you're telling them is accurate. And there's a few different reasons when they will actually cancel it. So not having a receiver in the household, which who doesn't have a receiver? Everyone has some kind of radio or a TV or laptop usually. Not having a receiver for legal entities, trade, business, or other activity, departure to a retirement home, death of the person liable, and termination of a trade or legal entity. So those are the only reasons when you can get out of it, okay? Now, I do want to say this. It's only €10.62 a month, and the price has not increased since 2012. That amount cannot be higher than 1.5% of the average monthly netto salary, okay? So does it stink that you're charged this in perpetuity? Yeah, kinda. But when I really think about it, it's like, it's not that much money. The price hasn't gone up in 11 years. And it's funding the public television and radio, who actually had us on TV last week, by the way. So I love HRT. So that's the situation. We do have a little bit more information on this. So if anyone would like, the information on how they charge, how you can cancel, more of an explanation, send us a DM and Cam will shoot that stuff over to you. But that's the situation with the public television. So it's just kind of our duties as residents and citizens to help support that network. And I get that. Although I mean, in hindsight, of course, I wish I hadn't opened the door, but here we are. Here we are. All right. So next, this comes from Matt on LinkedIn. What are current wait times looking like to receive Croatian citizenship by descent? You know, great question. Because in my experience, it's been changing a lot over the last 6 months, 8 months. Oh, here we go again. Okay, we're on the move. It seems like it's taking longer. So the rule of thumb for a while, at least the last couple of years, is that it was 1 to 2 years on average when you were applying abroad, and it could be less than a year if you were applying from within country. We're not seeing that anymore. Now, in country, I mean, it's not to say that there aren't like some outlier situations, but it's now taking more than a year in country, and we're seeing the processing times outside the country take longer. Now, if you're applying through the LA consulate, I mean, I'm sorry. It will definitely be more than 2 years if you're applying through the LA consulate. Now, I want to explain quickly why processing times take longer when you're abroad versus in country. It's because of the consulates. So when you submit your application at a consulate, they don't turn around the next day and send it to Zagreb for processing. They send them all in like a diplomatic pouch and they batch them. Okay, so every consulate sends their batches to Zagreb in different intervals. So maybe they do it quarterly, or maybe they do it every 5 months or 6 months. LA takes the longest. We had one client last year, and LA still had her application and had not sent it to Zagreb after 11 months. Our lawyer had to get involved and was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Come on. So it's important that you follow up, make sure that they have been submitted. And if they haven't been, if you ever get into a dispute with a consulate, always get a lawyer involved. Because I want to remind everybody that the consulates are under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it's the Ministry of the Interior that is actually reviewing and approving these applications. So the consulates are the gatekeepers, but they are not the same ministry. So sometimes the consulates will come up with their own rules and requirements that do not match what the Ministry of the Interior says. And that can cause problems. Like most recently, last year, we had the LA consulate telling multiple people that spouses could not apply at the same time as the descendant that they're married to, which is not true. You can absolutely apply at the same time. There was like the first couple of years, like 2020, 2021, where they wouldn't allow them to do that. But now it's very common knowledge that they allow spouses to apply at the same time. So I always want to remind everybody, they're not the same ministry. So that's why if the consulate's giving you a hard time, it's important to push back. And if they still will not help you, get a lawyer involved. That's the way to get around that. Okay, we have all the citizenship guides. If you are interested in that, or you don't know if you qualify, send us a message and we'll help you figure it out. Okay, this is our last question. So this comes from Sage here on Instagram. I love your name. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes. The law on foreigners says that for a third country national, these are the restrictions on travel. From the date of approval of temporary residence approved for a period of up to 1 year, stays abroad for more than 90 days in total or more than 30 days at once. Question. Are there a certain amount of days that you have to be in Croatia again before you can leave for another 30 days or less? Like, can you stay for 24 hours in Croatia and then leave again? This is a great question. We have not talked about this, actually. So I want to summarize this part of the law that they were talking about, just to make sure that everybody's clear on the context before I answer the question. So when you're a third country national, anyone who is a non-Croatian that has residence in Croatia, there's a certain amount of time you have to stay in Croatia to maintain your residence. So for EU citizens, it's 6 months. But for third country nationals, you cannot be gone for more than 90 days per year or 30 days at one time. And that's important that you abide by those rules. I have found that since Croatia joined the Schengen zone, a lot of people want to break that. because they feel like, well, how is Croatia going to know if I'm in other parts of Schengen for more than 30 days? Well, there are multiple ways that they can find out. And if they do find out, then they can cancel your residence permits and they can fine you. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. So back to Sage's question. She's asking, okay, I've been gone for 30 days. Can I come back to Croatia for a day and then immediately leave again for another 30 days? Yes. Yes, you can. Based on the law? Yes. Now, ultimately, it's all about how the government interprets it. But I've never seen a case so far where that has ever been an issue. As long as you are not gone for more than 30 days. And keep in mind that a half day is considered a whole day. That's important to understand. So the travel day to and from Croatia, each of those is a whole day. So I wouldn't, to be safe, I would add an extra day just to pad it, like come home for like 2 days and then go back out again. And make sure that you keep meticulous records in case you get into a border patrol dispute. But make sure you stay under the 90 as well. That's really important. So I think I want to add one other thing to this conversation. I have seen also people who, they want to travel a lot. And that's fine. But you have to abide by those Schengen rules. And if you really want to be outside of Croatia more than you're inside of Croatia, cancel your residence and just use your Schengen time. It's just not worth being fined, because if you want to be in Croatia long term, being fined and violating those restrictions is only going to cause you trouble later. Like if you're not planning to stay in Croatia long term, then you're just really risking a fine. But now that Croatia is in the Schengen zone, the fines are much higher. The penalties are much higher. I have seen a case last year where a guy overstayed because he miscalculated his days and he was banned from the Schengen zone for 1 year. So these things do happen. They do enforce these things for sure. Sometimes they can be a little bit slow, but it does happen. Now we have a guide on travel restrictions, which breaks down how much time you can be gone from Croatia if you are non-EU, if you are EU, if you are protected Brexit UK status, both for temporary residents as well as long-term residents. So if you have long-term residents, you can be gone from Croatia for a longer period of time. Like, so if you're a third country national, you can be gone from Croatia for 1 year while still maintaining your long-term residence. So if you would like that guide, send us a DM and we'll shoot it over to you. Where'd you go? All right. I think I have a rare moment of peace. Okay, so those are our questions for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have a question you would like to see on a future episode, send us a DM, drop us a comment. We'll be happy to answer it. And keep in mind, next week, we've got some things they're researching that we have not answered before, nothing close to those topics. I'm looking forward to seeing those. And also, a week from now, I will be at the end of this journey I'm about to take, and I really look forward to sharing that with you. So thank you so much for being here. This is 5 Question Friday. If you're not following Expat in Croatia and you enjoyed this episode, follow us. Come on, we're so glad you're here. Join the party. The more the merrier. Hey, 45 degrees sailing. Hey, thanks for joining. Okay, good night. Vidimo, say ciao. Have a great weekend.